My name is Patrick, but you can call me 26. And what you're going to do in this video is we're going to talk all about variables. Those are simply containers that represent value stored in memory. So for example, if we come here, we could say var me is going to be a string called Groot. And we'll talk about strings in a bit, so don't worry about that. So this is a variable and it's called, in this case, me, and it contains the string Groot. Now, when picking variable names, you want to make them as descriptive as possible so that when you come back to the future, you know what the variable was for. So for example here, instead of just saying me, we could say this is going to be my greeting. Let's say I greet people by calling them Groot, and that is going to be that. In other languages, they normally use the snake case convention. In Swift, we normally use the camel case convention. In the camel case convention, the first word is lowercase, and then any succeeding words are going to have uppercase. So in this case, we have a small m and a capital G for the greeting, in my greeting. When declaring variables, you might want to tell Xcode the type of variable that you're going to put in the particular variable. So for example here, we could say, aside from just saying my greeting, we could come here and tell it that this is a type of string. Now a string is just a collection of characters enclosed by quotation marks like this, but we could tell Xcode. But as you saw, this is not strictly required in some cases, right? So we could do this and this is still going to work. Act of creating a variable using the word var is called declaring it, and the action of putting something in it using the equal sign is called assigning. Now, we do not always have to do this. We could, for example, come here and say that greeting, tell Xcode that greeting is going to be a string, and we do not assign it immediately. We could later say my greeting, and then we assign something to it. We say something like hello world, right? So if we do that and then come here and say print is how we print something in the console. I know you're not supposed to use a word when defining it, but what we could do is we could actually come here and say print my greeting, and when we hit this button here, you will find that hello world, right? So we get the, let's give ourselves a bit more real estate by coming here, and we see we have hello world, right? So in this case, we have created the variable greeting and told Xcode that this is going to be a string, and then later on we have assigned a string to that particular variable, and then we have printed it to the console. It is important to note that variable names are case sensitive. So for example, if we come here and say my greeting with a small g, you will notice that we will get an error that it will say it cannot find my greeting in scope. This means that it can't find the variable my greeting, right? In this case, because greeting here has a uppercase G and this has a lowercase g. So always keep that in mind so that you can actually ensure that there are no errors. In creating variable names, it is important to know that you cannot start a variable name with a number, a special character at the beginning, right? So for example here, when we're creating this, we could not say var 8 my greeting, right? This would not work because 8 is a number. However, we could come and say my greeting 8, right? My greeting 8, like so, and that would be okay. So at the beginning, we can't put special characters or a number. That's something you should remember. And also, there are reserved words in Swift. So we couldn't, for example, create a variable called something like, we call var, right? We can't call var, and then try and assign something like okay. So this would not work because var is a reserved keyword. So there are a number of reserved keywords that we cannot use to create as names for our variable. Now, when we create a variable, we can reassign a value to the variable, right? That's why it's called a variable. It's not constant. So what we could do here is we could say my greeting is going to be hello world, and then we could come here and say my greeting 8 is then going to be hello Mars. So when we run print here, it's going to print the last value we assigned to it. So if we do this, we're going to get hello Mars, right? We see the hello world here is from the top here. But then when we come and say hello Mars, the final thing that is going to be printed is going to be hello Mars. While it is possible to reassign the contents of a variable, the types have to be the same. So in this case, we have my greetings, which is a string, and we can only assign to it another string, right? So if we were to come here and try to assign to my greeting 8, something like the number 8, it would complain because it would say you're trying to put an integer within a string. So in some languages, this is not a problem, but in Swift, this is not allowed. Another thing you might want to do is you might want to make sure that a variable the value in the variable cannot be changed. So for example, if we come here and we say let, instead of using var, we use the keyword let, like so, and we put the value here, my greetings, like so, right? And we put the value hello world in my greeting 8, right? If we run this, we're still going to get hello world. However, if we try to reassign it by saying my greeting 8 is going to be let's say some sort of string, and we try running it, it won't even allow us to run this because we created an immutable value. You cannot reassign to it after you create it when you use the value when you create a variable with let. So let does not allow you to change, but var does. While we're at it, we could assign variables to other variables, right? So we could come here and after this say var my greeting, let's say 9. My greeting 9 is going to be my greeting 8. And when we come here and we print my greeting 9 and we run this, this is going to say hello world, just like my greeting 8. So here what we have done is we have assigned one variable to another. So that in a nutshell is a very gentle introduction to variables. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.